On the chapter.
Yeah, what page?
Page 7.
Okay. So with any of these graphing problems, the first thing I want to do is find my values for A, C, H, and K. But before I can do that, I have to make sure that my function is kind of written in that transformation form that allow me to find those values easily. I notice that this is not yet written in that form. So I would begin by factoring. So if I factor out a 1/2, so the leading coefficient on x is 1. I have this. So here my a is 1, my c is 2, my h is pi, and my k is 2. Good with that? Okay. I'll write my transformation map. So I have cx plus h, and then ay plus k. I'll write down my key points. Not something that you have to memorize. These would be things that would be provided for you. So then I'll plug in my x's into the x spot and my y's into the y spot. So when I do that, I get 0, and then whatever you do to undefined, it still stays undefined. And I have pi over 2 and 1. Then I have pi and 2, and 3 pi over 2 and 3. And then I have 2 pi and undefined. Okay, so far, Evan?
Yeah.
Okay. The points that have undefined as the y-coordinates are the locations of my asymptote. So I have an asymptote here at x equals 0. And asymptote here at 2 pi. Hi, Siri. And then we'll plot our points. So pi over 2, 1, pi and 2, and then 3 pi over 2 and 3. So there's my curve, and I guess I can fill that spot by just kind of putting a little doodly-doo there in the corner. Does that feel okay, Evan?
Yeah.
Joe?
If you do, let's see, B on H6.
So it says we have a minimum at 6, negative 12, and the second maximum at 24, 8. So I'm going to start by kind of sketching a little picture of what's going on. So I have my minimum down here. And then we go up to 1 maximum, and then up to the second maximum here. Does that feel okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I know that the midline is going to come like halfway in between these two things. Right? So it's basically going to be the median of these y coordinates. And in the case of two numbers, the median, the middle, is going to be the same as the average. So the average of those is going to be -2. So that's my k. Is that all right? So the amplitude then is like the distance from the extrema to that midline. So if I'm going from -2 up to 8, how many units did I travel? 10. Yep. So that's my amplitude. Next thing I'm going to do is figure out my value for C. So I'm going to look at my picture and see how many periods I've drawn of my graph. So from here to here is 1 period, right? And then I have also from there to there. So that green part is half, right? So I have 1.5 periods is going to equal the horizontal distance from -6 to 24. So the x-coordinates, because it's a horizontal distance. So how many units is it to go from -6 to +24? 30 units, right? 6 units to get to 0, and then 24 more units to get to 24, right? Is that a lot? I don't know. It's something, though.
1.9.
It's more than 29. Yes. I'll divide both sides by 1.5 to get the period by itself, and then I know 1 period is 2 pi c. So if I divide both sides by 2 pi and choose the c to be period, or positive, excuse me, I get 10 over pi. Is that okay? So last thing we're going to do is we need to decide whether we're going to use sine or cosine, and then figure out whether the a should be positive or negative, and then find our h. Which one would you want to use here, Joe, sine or cosine? Good. Why?
Because it's like minimum and max.
Very good. Okay, so from the parent function, we're using the 0.01, which is a maximum. What point do you want to use from our transform function? It doesn't matter, you can choose either.
-6, -12.
Okay, -6, -12, and we're told this one is a minimum. So we've picked cosine. To decide whether the a is positive or negative, we're going to compare the type of extrema we have here. So if I'm going from max and changing it into a min, what does that tell me about a? It has to be negative. Good. And then since the x-coordinate on the parent function is 0, the h has to be the x-coordinate from the transform function. So that has to be -6. And that's all we need.
Is like sine also 0, 1?
Nope.
0, 0.
Yes. Does that feel okay, Joe?
Yeah.
So probably the trickiest piece there was sorting out the value for C and looking at your picture and deciding you had 1.5 periods there. But if you draw the picture, it's usually, you can usually kind of see it with your eyes. There's not really a calculation to do so much. Anybody else? Happy to do more if there's more questions. Okie dokie. We talked about the test format and everything, right? Okay. Cool. Find yourself a partner then.